My name is Glenn Derry. I was the virtual production supervisor on Avatar and Real Steel. I own a company called Technoprops that's in Valencia, California. We do a lot of live, we're kind of where the CG world meets the physical reality of movie making. We make a lot of toys and tools and techniques, and we develop hardware and software that gets used on live action movie sets primarily. And we like to use I call it like augmented reality type filmmaking, things like that. We make all the little bits and bobs that make the cameras talk to the CG applications that don't exist yet. We specialize in that kind of stuff, little hardware and software bits and tools. Avatar was my sort of first foray into trying to make a lot of the things that were being done in Previz and CG filmmaking at the time, try to use it on a live action movie set. So my job as the virtual production supervisor, I put the crew together that ended up working with Lightstorm. I helped design the virtual camera that Jim used day in, day out for the production. I helped develop the pipeline that sort of like made all the real-time CG work like film dailies did, which is really kind of the trick to how the whole system worked. And we developed the head rig cameras that got used to do the facial capture, ultimately by Weta. So my company built a lot of the individual little toys. Like you saw the head rigs, we manufactured those, and then we made the cameras and things like that. But also I was there day in, day out, kind of running the crew and teaching the CG guys how a live action film set works, and then trying to make the two things mix together well for Jim, because I mean the point of it was to enable Jim to be able to use, shoot 9-foot tall blue aliens, which he couldn't do. He couldn't fly a film crew to Pandora and shoot. We had to figure out a way to do it. So and I was part of the R&D team, and we just kind of put all those pieces together. But it ended up being about a 5, almost 6-year thing for me.
I was gonna say that was a big
yeah.
Big chunk of your life.
Yeah, it was a long time. It was fun. I mean, interesting looking back. I mean, it's been a few years now since you've been on it, and we've taken a lot of the techniques that we learned about on Avatar and refined them and made them a little better, and and try to make them work on a more modest scale, budgeted films and things like that. But I think that the big leap is to take things from sort of a traditional shot-based animation approach and take CG into the world of live action takes, where you're recording just information, you're recording motion capture, you're recording different things and trying to bring it all in and deal with it as edited material, as opposed to like working on a storyboard and then following that storyboard all the way through, which is kind of how traditional animation works. This is more like, let's treat it like live action, go get a bunch of stuff, we'll assemble it and figure out what the best of that is, and tools like motion capture, or even traditional previs work really well, and you can do that. And one of the enabling features for us was that camera, because it enabled us to give the filmmaker, it put in his hands a tool that he could use. It wasn't a mouse on a key, on a desk, which some guys are really good at, but a lot of the traditional filmmakers you would work with aren't necessarily, especially guys who are used to shooting camera, on a live action set. So if you give them something that enables them to get in there and find shots, it's really liberating for them, because they can put their take on something, where it's maybe really hard for me to stand over the shoulder of an animator and say, okay, tilt the camera down, pan over here, my shot looks like this. If you go, here's a camera, go, show me. And that's liberating for them, because then it starts becoming a much more interactive process with the directors and the people that are involved. Previz is a really great tool for fleshing out scenes from a traditional storyboard sense. So if I sit there and I want to put together scenes, I can previs out those elements, and it still requires, okay, I'm going to get a 2-shot here, I'm going to do my wide master, I'm going to do whatever. You kind of like storyboard that out, and in previs you can sit there, and if you've done it right, there's 2 schools of previs. There's one like just slap it together, get it in front of the director as fast as it as fast as you can. Don't worry about 3D relationships. Just get it to look good on the screen. That was the old school previs. Most people who are doing top level previs now don't. They do everything's built to scale of the sets that you're actually going to work in, so that the previs material is much more valuable in terms of as a technical tool to sort of disassemble, figure out where it's at. Figure out where the camera should go and things like that, for instance. But Previz is really great at fleshing things out from the sense of I'm going to take my storyboard and I'm going to push that storyboard along and start fleshing out the scene. Virtual production is much more like live action filmmaking, where we're going to use things like motion capture. I'm going to have people in a volume. I'm going to direct them like I would talent, and because they are talent, I'm going to direct them just like I'm directing my film, and I'm going to have a virtual camera in there. I'm going to have some tool that lets me visualize this in real time so that I can make adjustments as they happen with the actors. Like, the classic example is, a lot of times you're on a movie set and the actor may be a little too short to get the eye line to look exactly right. Well, you put them on an Apple box. Now they're the right height. Well, if I have a real-time camera, I can see that. In Previz, I might put my camera back there and I might go, okay, that's good enough. I'm going to move on. Here, I can hold the camera there and go, get that up, move that over, and I have the opportunity to sort of have this real-time interaction with the people creating the CG. The machines and everything else that's creating the imagery as it comes out. The key to the virtual production is, again, to have it treated like film dailies, not like it's a shot going in the movie. Like Previz, it's like, here's a shot. I've got shot 1, I've got my second shot, I've got my third shot, I've got my fourth shot. Virtual production is more, here's 5 takes. I'm going to animate a sequence, or I'm going to have a sequence in the can ready to go, and then I'm going to go and put different cameras on it and find my material within the context of that 3D environment that I'm working in. Be it real time with motion capture feeding in real time, or in its simplest form, you just Previz out, do 45 seconds or a minute and a half of animated sequence there, and then go find your camera work in there, because you may find something with the handheld camera that you wouldn't necessarily think of, just because of the real-time nature. I may move the camera in a way that I didn't have, and that's sort of like the boundary for me, is when you're leaping out of shots and getting into takes and then finding your shots later. That's the difference between Previz and virtual production. Well, they couldn't have existed that many years ago, because the tool set was just coming online to enable you to really have real-time representations in a cost-effective manner. I mean, it's been going on for a long time. I'm not the first guy to do this. There's been years and years and years of both demonstrations and individual shots for films, like a lot of stuff in AI. They had a virtual background and things like that. For the Rouge City sequence, ILM had put together a system using similar techniques to what we ended up doing on Avatar way back then. It was like 2000, and even earlier. I know there was a lot of work done in different veins doing both augmented reality and virtual production type work. What we did on Avatar was just sort of like combine it all and refine it and make it work day in, day out as a production tool. So we had to keep track of everything and detail out where all the assets were going, and detail out where all of the basically when you do this virtual production thing, I shoot a bunch of stuff, and then I go into my Avid and I'll edit it together, and then I have to extract back out of that what took place during the CG shoot, if things move around or whatever. So you have to be able to name those takes. You have to be able to associate the data that's been captured originally from that thing that you've cut together later, which is like completely different than a normal, again, CG pipeline, because normally it's like if it's coming from live action CG, all that stuff's already been queued up for you. You've gone and you've shot this take, and you've shot all the elements for those takes traditionally. Forget even like CG. Just think of like an opticals. You would shoot plates, and then you'd put all those plates together, and those would become a visual effects shot. Well, here it's like everything's malleable. So in the virtual side of things, I can go and create this world, and I can go start moving trees around and moving things to the shot. I may hold my camera up there and go, you know what, I need to make that tree line a little different. I need to move that mountain a little closer. I need to do something like that compositionally, because that works. I can do all of that instantly because of tools like Motion Builder, which allows, it's like a video game representation of what's going on. And in the old days, you didn't have that flexibility to have a real-time window there. It just didn't exist. I mean, you might click that mountain, and it might take 5 seconds for it to update, and then you try and slide it forward, and you certainly couldn't have a real-time render of that in any meaningful way on commodity hardware. But now it's there. You know, and Autodesk has done a good job in the last couple versions of making like, you know, Motion Builder and Maya talk together a little bit, because those are the primary tools that we use as we're, you know, developing out these workflows. Is, you know, we're basing it on, you know, tools that exist. You're not writing all this stuff from scratch. Good thing these guys have put a lot of work into developing, you know, this software for years and years, and you're able to leverage, you know, what's already there. And the primary reason that it hadn't existed up until Avatar was that it just, the computers weren't fast enough. I mean, it just wasn't fast enough to show real time and have it make meaning. I mean, you could have like wireframes, you could have like really low, you know, low shaded characters. The video game stuff wasn't online, but wasn't up to the point where you could make like meaningful lighting decisions and things like that in a real time way. But Avatar was kind of that point where, oh, it started making sense. We could nudge it out of it. It wasn't easy, but you could nudge those types of looks out of it in real time. It's a bunch of questions, but virtual production it's an enabling tool. The way we work with it is it's very much an enabling tool for the director. The whole point is to make it director centric, to bring somebody who, again, couldn't necessarily sit down at a computer and map out a scene, give him a tool set to enable him to work with characters and stories and things that are either huge in scope that they could never possibly physically build, or you know, you have characters and things that don't exist in real life. So you're enabling, it's, you know, there's multiple levels of technology that are going on to make it. It's sort of just the mishmash of all of these things: motion capture, performance, you know, performance capture if you take it to the next level. All your regular sort of CG, computer graphics generated worlds and scopes and you know, landscapes, all of these things. Everything gets moshed up, and you want to be able to work with it in real time. To me, that's what makes the virtual production part of it work, is that I've got instant interaction with the director. He can stand and work with tools that he's useful and familiar dealing with. He's not talking to an animator necessarily. He's talking to actors who are in, you know, motion capture, being their performances are being captured. We're taking all that material in, and then we're editing it later and creating his film from that. Previz plays an essential part in it as well, even prior to the virtual production stage. If you build all the assets correctly, you can use the same assets for both disciplines. One in a more traditional sense, like for instance, I've been working on a film recently where we're not scaled up to the point where we can do a full virtual production yet. I've got a camera, I can do, you know, camera shots, but I can't afford a motion capture stage at this point. So what do? I go in and I start prevising out the scenes, but I put a virtual camera into those previs scenes. It still gives the director a chance to come in, find shots, work with me. You as the previs artist or the virtual production artist sitting on the real-time motion builder renderer box are able to move the assets around to his, like, you're the equivalent of the grip or electric or, you know, the greensman in a traditional movie. You're functioning as those same roles. You're helping design and architect even the art direction to a certain point. We, like, these days, I have more fun working with art directors than just about anything else, because you can sit in a volume with a virtual camera and talk with the art director and start designing shapes and designing landscapes and worlds, even, and vehicles and all this stuff with them in a real-time fashion that just, frankly, it couldn't have happened even a few years ago. But it's enabling that sort of shot creation. Like, we'll sit there and come up with a shot, like, let's say we're underwater, you know, and you're trying to visualize, like, well, what's that going to look like as we're pulling through this look? Well, you can just do it. You just do it right now in the moment. You grab the camera, you find what that shot's going to look like. You have your 3D model there, and then, you know what? Oh, I could use another series of plant life over here. You just grab and you duplicate the plant life really quickly, and now you've got it, so they can see that. And all this is happening while they're holding a camera, while they're engaged. So it's that kind of process, to me, is what makes it work. Rather than it's not some abstract guy sitting in a room in a black box somewhere, you know, and show me what you're done, you know, show me what you've completed with. It becomes a very enabling tool for those who may not be able to sit at the computer, but who are great storytellers to be able to function in that way. And I find that that to me is the most fun part of the movie making process anyway, is that beginning, that initial concepts of what are we going to do for this shot, how's this going to work, and if you can figure that out with the director right there and work with them as it's happening, it's a really cool experience.